All right, this is Steve back with you here on another Broken International or Case International. What we got is a 2388 combine that has oil leaking from the bell housing. This is a pretty common problem. A lot of guys have gone in there and put rear main seals in, a number of things. You got two places in the bell housing that can leak oil, or two main places, the engine and transmission. I mean, that should seem obvious, but those are the two main places. What typically leaks is not actually the rear main seal. The rear main seal on this 8.3s very, 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 very rarely ever leak. What actually goes to leaking is the horseshoe-shaped plate that actually retains the rear main seal. On the transmission side, or the PTO gearbox side, coming right off the back of the engine on these 8.3s and the 23, 21, 1680, 1660, pretty much anything, any of these international combines. This here shaft is the shaft coming out of the PTO gearbox. This is it, all prepped up with the new shaft. But what happens is, if you look here closely, they wear on one side of the shaft. They'll actually wear heavy on one side and next to none at all on the other. The bushing in the pilot bushing in the flywheel will wear just the same. It'll have a heavy wear on one side, not on the other. There's nothing you can do with this shaft. Once the shaft gets to this point, it's toast. So we start over. We pull this assembly here out of the gearbox. There's just 4 bolts that hold it on, some shims down here, and an O-ring. When you press these out, I always change the seal that's in here, the bearing that's in here. Put a bearing splitter on this gear, pull this gear off. There's a key in there. You got to be real careful to make sure you get lined back up. Press the new seal and bearing into this housing, and then press the shaft up through the middle of it. Heat this gear, drop it on, making sure that key does not move, and then set her all back in there. We'll drive a new seal here into the gearbox, then slide this shaft up in there after we clean up the shims, double check her gear lash, slap her all back together, and it should be good to go for another long time. Another thing to always check while you're in there, you'll hear guys talk about the hydro input shaft going bad. That is actually going to be this gear, which is your auxiliary pump belt pulley inside, in between your hydro and your PTO gearbox. This is splined onto the back side, or splined into the hydro, and this bolts to the back side of this shaft where it comes out of the gearbox. And it's kind of hard to see in here, but if we look really close, if I get my pick here, this spline is worn about 50%. This spline should be only be about as wide as my pick there, not twice as wide as like it is. If we flip it over here, sometimes we can get a little better view. There's a little bit better view, but it's got about 50% of the spline. If we weren't pulling this one off for other reasons, I probably wouldn't even mess with this one. It's worn, but it's not overly worn. It's more a matter of we're here, so we're going to do it. And something that'll help prevent that, this fancy little grease zerk here, most guys don't know exists. If you don't have a hole drilled in the top side of your PTO gearbox support housing, or the hydro support housing, so that you can get in there and grease that, usually take a 1-inch hole saw and cut a hole in there so that you can get that there. There's no good way to get to it to grease it. You've got to bar the engine over till the grease zerk lines up. You pump that full of grease, that packs these splines full of grease, and then helps prevent this wear. It does greatly extend the life of it. The splines on the shaft and the hydro, a lot of times will be about matched to this. Sometimes you get lucky, you can put on 2 pulleys for each hydro shaft. We're not going to put a hydro shaft in this one. We're just going to put a pulley in it and take up most of that slop, grease it well, and go on down the roads and hope that we don't have any more problems. I'll show you a shot in the next video of the hydro and some things that we're doing to it. And then also this combine had second gear out of it, and the transmission, so we'll be pulling the transmission apart, putting second gear in it.